The Season 1 update for the First Descendant has brought us new invasion dungeons, which is content that prioritizes speed. The faster you clear these dungeons, the more rewards you'll get. In light of this, we're making this video today to break down the bunny build that I use for speed clearing through these dungeons so fast that I sometimes end up with a couple of minutes to spare. This build boasts huge skill 2 uptime, large range, great damage, and can refill almost your entire mana bar from picking up a blue mana orb off the floor. A quick disclaimer before we start, this build is specifically for Ultimate Bunny, but I will show an alternative build that is usable on Normal Bunny later on. We'll be showing the necessary mods and components to make these builds work, as well as showcasing them side by side at the end of the video. Getting right into the mods, we have our generic damage mods Focus on Electric and Focus on Singular. These give us just enough cooldown to have constant uptime on our skill 3. We also run Emergency Measures, Skill Concentration, and Skill Insight for additional critical hit chance and damage to further supplement our skill 3 damage. This gives us just under 30% critical hit chance and 3 times crit damage for a solid boost to our DPS when we land crits. And yes, 30% crit chance doesn't sound that great, but when you're sprinting around sending out almost 3 lightning bolts per second, it's more than enough. Next, we have Maximize Range and Skill Expansion to cap out the range of our skill 3 and increase HP for some survivability. We run Maximize Conservation to reduce the MP cost of our skill 2 and run Energy Collection to boost the amount of MP recovered by blue orbs. This means that blue orbs refill almost our entire mana bar on pickup, as well as allow us to quickly refill our mana bar between dungeon rooms while we're out of combat. And of course, we run High Voltage to make use of the high damage and high range, allowing us to hit everything in the room without much effort. A few flex spots that I'll point out here: if you're struggling with survivability or just don't want the huge range, you can switch Maximize Range for Spear and Shield for more defense and damage. Also, if you prefer MP Collector, you can swap that for Energy Collection. Despite MP Collector's proc chance being atrocious, you do cull through an ungodly amount of mobs in these invasion dungeons, so it should be pretty viable here. The second half of this build are the components, but the requirements aren't too crazy. The main thing you need is a sensor with max MP and a memory with MP recovery modifier. Optionally, you can use an auxiliary power that has MP recovery out of combat. Use whatever processor you want, as that's not important for the build. I'll also say here that I wouldn't recommend using a Slayer set, as the base stats on these are pretty bad, and you'll need a decent amount of survivability for the dungeon's boss. I just have these pieces equipped since these are the best main and substat roles that I have. And speaking of main and substat roles, you'll want to focus primarily on increased HP, then secondly on increased defense. For your Reactor, you'll want one with an SMG optimization gun that boosts singular and electric skill power. You'll want an SMG because you simply move faster with one equipped. For sub-roles, you can use whatever sub-roles you prefer. My recommendations though, in order of priority, would be Skill Cost, Singular or Electric Skill Power Boost, Skill Critical Hit Chance or Damage, and lastly Increased Range. That's it for the Ultimate Bunny build, so let's move on to the Normal Bunny build that doesn't use High Voltage. Most modules are the same, except now we need to run Nimble Fingers for cooldown in order to get full uptime on our skill 3. We simply switch the socket from one of our crit mods back to an M slot and put in Nimble Fingers. And of course, we're not running High Voltage in this build variation. For flex slots, since we're not using High Voltage, we don't really need our crit mods, at least personally for me. So I'd recommend switching another crit mod like Skill Insight for Spear and Shield for more defense and skill power. By the way, don't forget to change the socket on the mod slot so you don't penalize the mod cost. And as in the previous build, Energy Collection and MP Collector can be swapped for preference. Your components and reactors for this build will be the same as the previous High Voltage build. Both builds are insanely great for clearing out invasion dungeons, but I do highly recommend the Ultimate Bunny High Voltage build as it has a faster clear time due to the obnoxious range, and helps cull through the dungeon boss thanks to High Voltage's damage boost. Either way, at the end of the day, it all boils down to what you prefer. So feel free to straight up copy the build or take it and modify it to your liking. This is what works for me, and I figured I'd share it with all of you. And before we end, if you guys are new to the game, I have created a beginner's guide that'll help you get a strong start in the First Descendant and help you through the storyline to eventually unlock endgame content like these invasion dungeons. If that sounds interesting, you can check it out here. Thanks for watching guys, and happy farming.